What's up?
Dude, I feel like we need to start a podcast.
Okay.
But what do you want to call it?
How about Youth for Christ?
Nah.
Well, what do you want to call it?
I think By His Wounds.
That's it.
Hi, welcome back to the By His Wounds podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Lynch, here with my co-host, Eli Bear.
What's up?
And today the topic is, why don't I feel fearfully and wonderfully made?
That is our topic today. We're getting this question from, Jacob actually brought it up to me a couple days ago, because both of us have struggled with looking at ourselves at some point in our lives and saying, I don't like the way that I look.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a lot of people, I don't know if I've met anybody who's completely satisfied and says, hey, I love the way that I look, unless they're just vain or something and they're just like full of themselves.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's always something about us that if we looked at it, we would change. And that's really where we want to get after what the Bible says about how God has made us, who He's made us to be.
Yeah, and a little backstory for me is it was like 2 or 3 years ago, I was at my heaviest point. I was sitting around 325 pounds, and I was super down on myself, and I did not feel like I was worthy of anything, and I definitely didn't feel like I was wonderfully made at all, and I doubted that for a long period of my life, just because no one kind of told me that I was, you know?
Yeah, and I get that. So that's where we're coming from. There's other people we know who struggle with this question, and it's because they've been told, like, hey, you're fat, you're ugly, you're worthless, you're not worthy to be loved, by someone that claims to love them, whether that's a grandparent, a parent, or a significant other. And that's tragic, and that's not true. You know, there may be some things about them that aren't the most healthy. There may be some things about those relationships that aren't the most healthy, but that doesn't change the fact that every person is fearfully and wonderfully made by God and was created for an intimate relationship with Him. And in that, we can know that we are loved and we are accepted for who we are. You know, outside of our sin. Obviously, we're called to repent of our sin.
Yeah.
But, you know, when we're living our lives and we're seeking to honor God, like, there's nothing about us that God is looking and saying, you are worthless to me.
Well, yeah, and I think that those sort of comments fall into like the unrealistic standards of the world, and I think people in today's world are trying to humanize whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. So if they feel bad about themselves, they're making sort of like a checklist to try and help it. But in reality, we both know that unless they attack it from a biblical standpoint, they won't fully understand or fully ever love themselves for whatever it is that they do, whether that's, you know, like Ozempic or GLP-1s, whatever the world is telling them to do to feel prettier or more loved.
Yeah.
And I think that can get them in a bad headspace, because most of the time those things don't work.
Yeah.
So then once it doesn't work, then they're like, well, I'm just stuck. And that's when they need to, you know, look in the Bible and see what God says, because in reality, nothing in the Bible is false. It's all true. And the world is very false, and they will constantly lie to you about who you're supposed to be, because God says it right here in His Word, who we are and what our purpose is.
Yeah. And I think you're onto something. Is anytime we see something wrong with ourselves, whether that is a sin problem or we just don't like the way that we look or we don't like our situation, I think our instant thought is go to make a checklist and a to-do list and like buckle down and say, I'm going to do better. And when we do that and we leave out the Word and we leave out God out of all of this, I think that's when it crumbles, because we may do that well for a month, a year, 2 years, but at some point there's going to be a point where you're running yourself thin, and your solutions to the problem, apart from what God has, just aren't going to cut it. And And that's the thing. We're not here to solve the answer to this question. Like this question, why don't I feel fearfully and wonderfully made? Like it's not necessarily like solvable. I can't look at every single person and say, "Oh, you don't feel fearfully and wonderfully made." Well, God says you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You should feel that way. That just doesn't work. So that's why we're here to give more tools and thoughts and insights from what the Word says, and then to challenge your mind to take these things to the Lord. So yeah, that's
and I think Psalm 139 is a good place to start with reading it. It says, Psalm 39, verse 1, Lord, you have searched me and know me. Verse 2, you know when I sit down and when I stand up. Verse 3, you observe my travels. You are aware of all my ways. Verse 4, before a word is on my tongue, you know all about it, Lord. And then verse 6, this wondrous knowledge is beyond me. It is lofty, and I am unable to reach it.
Yeah.
Essentially, what it's getting at there is God will always know us better than we even know ourselves, and He knows that we feel that we're not fearfully and wonderfully made, and He's there to guide us the right way, and He's there to care for us in the time that we don't feel like we're fearfully and wonderfully made. It's just, again, it's a relationship, and you just need to ask God to help. You can't do it like a checklist, like you said. You can't do it like that. You have to ask God to help change your heart and administer care so you would better understand what it actually means to be fearfully and wonderfully made and to be made in the image of God, because we're never going to understand how awesome God is. He's just so majestic. But to know that we're made in the image of God is something that we can't even imagine,
Yeah. And I like how David starts with, like, you've searched me and known me. So going all the way back to when he was created, like, made in the image of God, formed in his mother's womb. We're going to get to that part. But that he's known by God. All of his sin, all of his emotions, all of his grief, all of every experience he's ever had, like, God has searched him and knows him. So he knows. David starts this and says, God, I know that you know me. And I trust that you know me. And then he says, the fact that you know me better than I know me, I can't know it. Such knowledge is, I can't understand it. So to understand the love of God for us and the intimacy that we have with God, whether we feel it or not, we'll never fully understand it. But we can only seek more understanding, and as the Lord reveals that, that's when our mind starts to change and say, I may not feel lovable. I may not feel known by God. I may not feel like I look the way I want to. I may not be satisfied with anything in my life, but I know that God knows where I am. Yeah.
And it's, like I said, it's a relationship, and He longs for us to tell Him that, because it's just like any sin we have in our life. I mean, this sin is no different. It's just God knows how we feel. He just wants us to tell Him, because, for lack of a better example, it's like going to the doctor, and you sit down on the table, and they're like, all right, tell me what's wrong. And you're like, I don't know. And then how are they supposed to give you proper medicine to heal that problem if you don't tell them?
Yeah. But I think the amazing thing about God is that He does know, sometimes even when we don't know. But He wants you to tell Him, I don't know. And He'll look at you and say, well, I do. And we are going to, through the power of Christ, we are going to work on your heart, and your heart will be changed. And it's going to be a painful process. Like, nobody who ever struggles with sin ever gets through the process of being sanctified and being relieved of that sin without saying, man, that was hard. But you can say, man, that was hard, but God provided the strength, did the work in me, and it was so worth it, because now I can honor Him more.
Yeah, and I think it kind of sums that a little bit up in starting in verse 7 in Psalm 139. Where can I go to escape your spirit? Verse 8, if I go up to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. Verse 10, even there your hand will lead me, your right hand will hold on to me. Verse 12, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night shines like the day. Darkness and light are alike to you. The summary of those series of verses is not only is God all-knowing and he knows exactly how you feel, he's always with you when you feel like that. No matter where it is you go, no matter if you feel like you've gone too far for him, he's always going to be there right beside you to lead you and guide you the right way. But if you don't reach your hand out, he can't fully help in the way that you need it.
Yeah.
Unless you ask him. Because, he's always there. And it says right here, if I go up to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there.
Yeah.
So the highest place ever, and then earth. It's God is everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so knowing that we're known by him and knowing that he loves us, he knows us, we can go nowhere apart from him. He'll never leave us, never forsake us. That's when we can get to where it says in verse 13, for you formed my inward parts and knitted me together in my mother's womb. 14, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it well. So David is saying, God, I know you know me. I know I cannot flee your presence. I know that you have formed my inward parts, like the parts of me that I can't even see. Like our bodies are so amazingly made, so intricate. I was watching a video last night. It was just a silly YouTube video about how the iodine has solved so many problems and so many people, and for IQs and all this. It was really just a throw on video and fall asleep. But in the video, she talked about how your thyroid in your body, which sits right here, regulates so many chemicals and so much growth in your body. And if it doesn't have enough iodine, it'll grow. But it puts together all these like elements that make your body function the way it does and form the way it does. And without that, then your body can't form properly. And that's just one part of your body. That's taking different chemical elements and putting them together. And I'm no chemist or biologist. I don't know it that well, but our bodies are such intricate machines that if one thing goes wrong, like we die. And God has made us so uniquely and so amazingly that like our bodies work together so well. Like my muscles move like this just because my mind commands them to. And there's nerves that are firing and so much. Like when we really think about it, we think a car engine is something complex. Well, you look at the human body and it's like, man, that is so much more complex than a car engine ever will be. And God has made that, but not only just you or me, he's made every single person with intention for a specific reason to be specifically themselves. Like, you want to speak on how you and your brother are identical twins, but still different people?
Yeah, since birth, everyone has just confused us so much so that actually a funny story is my mom had to start painting my right big toe purple because they could not tell us apart.
No way.
I'm dead serious.
No, you're playing with me.
No. Boy. Yeah, she had to paint my big toe purple so they could tell us apart. And growing up, we tried to switch classes. In second grade, we did, and then the teacher caught on immediately because I did not have the same voice as my brother. But growing up, we'd always been identical. Kind of the older we got, the less identical we got. But if we both don't have our glasses on, it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Now, he has mutton chops, but...
Yeah, true.
And
when I first met y'all, it was hard to tell y'all apart. I mean, I got it eventually. It was easier that you wore glasses, but it was difficult.
Well, I think the better you got to know us, the more you realize that even though we look so similar, we still act differently. And to your point, it's because we both have different purposes in this world. Like, he feels the Lord is calling him to be a pastor, and I feel like the Lord's calling me to be a counselor. Just completely different spectrums of life.
But even more than that, y'all are like
purpose.
Different personality-wise, too.
Yeah.
Like completely different personality-wise. Like your brother, he's more kind of like, here and mindful and kind of he'll keep to himself and say something once in a while. And you're more of a speak your mind, like tell the truth always type of guy. Don't really care what people think.
Yeah, and I think the Lord has kind of blessed me with that, because now, granted, that's kind of sometimes I probably shouldn't say
it's
what
a
I'm
blessing
thinking,
and a curse.
but
I do the same thing.
and I think it's a helpful tool for me, though, because I'm not really lying to people about my sin, and it helps me get sin off my chest so I don't have to carry the burdens alone,
Yeah.
like the Lord calls us to do. But to get back to Psalm 139, I think it's crazy how, like you said, you knit me together in my mom's womb, just like me and my brother were both in my mom's womb together, and like we came out the same but different.
Yeah.
And I think it's so crazy to think about it like that. But it's also crazy that in these 16 verses, we see not only God, that he knows everything about us, our ins and outs, because he made us. He's got power over everything, and that he is always with us. And those are just 16 verses out of this entire book that tell us that 3 things about God. And those 3 things, I don't know about you, but that makes me just fired up about God. Just knowing that there's nothing I can do, just like the parable of the prodigal son. I cannot run away far enough for God to not still
pursue you.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he cares about us so much. And so when we look at this fearfully and wonderfully made, like, I think we think about it in such a physical way. We get to think about it as like our bodies. Yes, our bodies are amazing in the way that they work, in the way they're so different. Yes, it's amazing, it's unique. But even more than that, we have a soul inside our bodies, something that no other creation has except for human beings. And that God has given us an ability to reason and to communicate and to sit here and do these things. And he even gave us an ability to choose whether or not to follow him.
Yeah.
And, even though we chose against it, he still pursues us. And the fact that even when we feel like we can't be accepted, even when we feel like, hey, I feel disgusting, I feel gross, I feel like I'm the ugliest person in the world, both in and out, God looks at us and says, you are beautifully and wonderfully made. I have made you in your mother's womb for a reason, to be uniquely you. Like, I did not make you, Jacob. I did not make you to be Ben Williams. I did not make you to be Eli Bear. I made you to be Jacob Lynch, right? And God says that to everybody. I made you to be who you are. I put you in the circumstances you're in so that you may glorify me with who you are. Not so that you can be a carbon copy of anybody else, but because you are who you are. And I know we're not necessarily addressing the question straight up of how do I become satisfied with my physical body, because I just don't think we ever will.
That'd be a lie.
I don't think any of us are ever going to look at ourselves and say there's not something that I can improve. But that's not the point. The point is not to look at our physical bodies and say, man, if only I didn't have this big old mole on my nose, or man, if only I had 6-pack abs, or if only I could run, a marathon in this much time. Like, it's not about those things. It's about knowing our Creator, knowing that he knows us, and learning to love the way that he has created us.
Yeah, it's about understanding what it says in the Word when it says beautifully and wonderfully made. It's about understanding that and knowing God, like you said, and it's about loving God the way you're supposed to. Because one thing for me, my whole goal was losing weight, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
And it never will be the point. Yes, that's good, but the point is to bring glory to God and know his word better.
Yeah.
In everything that I do. Like your verse that you live by is 1 Corinthians 10:31. Yep. Whatever you do, do it to the glory of God, whether you eat or drink. Probably said it backwards because I can't memorize verses very well. But you get the point. You and me our goal is to just glorify God in everything that we do. Yeah. And taking care of our bodies is one of those things. But to your point, it's a constant sanctification process until we get home with the Lord, until we make it to heaven. We're never going to be perfect like Jesus. We're never going to conquer every single sin that we've ever struggled with. Yeah. And a lot of people are trying to humanize it, not just why don't I feel like I'm fearfully and wonderfully made? All these other questions that we do, people are trying to make a checklist and like, okay, this is how I solve this sin. There's nothing that we can do as humans apart from God to solve it. There's nothing.
Yeah, that's good.
As long as we understand and continue to learn more about God and who he is and his character, the more we're going to want to glorify him, and the more we're going to want to serve him, and the more we're going to want to truly trust and believe the words that he says.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's a hymn that's called Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus, and one of the lines is, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. And that applies to our sin, and it applies to everything, like money, power, a good family, like all of these things that we hold so near and dear are our looks. When we look upon Christ and what he's done and the love of God displayed in Jesus and how God reveals himself in his word and what he wants us to live for, the things of this earth, like having so much money or having the perfect house and family, they become lesser. And we pursue the things less of this world and pursue more of the things of God through the means that he's given us, which is this world. And we begin to say, okay, I can use my money that he's given me to his glory. I can use the house and the family he's given me to his glory. I can use the body that he's given me, and I can exercise freely and glorify him doing that without having to worry necessarily about the outcomes. But I can know that I am seeking him and seeking his glory, knowing that he loves me and he has formed me and that I was created for this intimate relationship with him, and being known by him and knowing him is where my value is.
Yeah, and I think a good thing that's helped me in the past to kind of better understand, all the material things of this world, including our bodies, like when we die, our bodies are not going to heaven with us. It says we're getting new bodies.
They'll be recreated. Yeah.
So and that's not to say don't go out, you need to exercise, right? Just to be healthy. But that's not to say that the whole point isn't to have a good body, because at the end of the day, the body, the house, the money, everything is going to stay here, right?
Until the resurrection.
Exactly.
I mean, when our bodies are raised, and that's why we take care of them. That's why we believe the body is important. But you have a point, is we're not created to be Olympic athletes. Yeah. Not all of us. Some people are great Olympic athletes, right? But, we can't live in the lie of, I have to be a supermodel to be accepted, or I have to look like an NFL linebacker to be accepted. It's really shallow for us to pursue those things, and that's where our value is. Also because we're just never gonna be fulfilled in that. Yeah. So moral of the story is, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, whether we feel it or not. And God has made us for this purpose of knowing him. And yes, we have Christian freedom to care for our bodies, and we should. But we should not put our worth in what we look like.
No, because, it's not a sustainable mindset to put yourself in. I put myself in the same mindset. Once I get my body right, I'm good. Once I do, X, Y, and Z, I'll be good. And
it's emptying.
Yeah. It's just like fulfilling. All these NFL athletes, there's been so many interviews that people have done, and they ask them, and they're like, "What? So you've done it all. You've won all these Super Bowls. You've done all these great things. How do you feel?" And then 9 times out of 10, they say, "I feel empty."
Well, Tom Brady has gone on air and said the exact same thing. Yeah. He has more Super Bowls than any NFL franchise has, and he has said, it just isn't enough. It just isn't enough. So you're never going to arrive in life, whether that's with your body, whether that's with your job, whether that's with anything, unless you are seeking the Lord and fulfilling your purpose in him.
And Tim Tebow was awful in the NFL. Yeah, he didn't. He was so bad that he had to switch positions and go to a tight end. That's how bad Tim Tebow was in the NFL. But when he had the interview, not once did he ever say that he felt empty, because he has Jesus.
Yeah.
Tom Brady has all this money, all these Super Bowls, all these things. But at the end of the day, does he have eternal life, which is the most important thing that can be in this. He's got a family. Tom Brady's got all these nice things, but he doesn't have Jesus. And that's all this stuff on this earth is not important compared to Jesus.
Amen. Well, I think we tried to hit the nail on the head as best we could, but that's about all the time we got today. You want to sign us off, man?
Yeah. Speaking of nails, this podcast name is by his wounds. And he got those wounds from the nails on the cross, man.
Boy, you're not wrong, but you're a cornball.
All right.
I'm out of here. All right, we'll see y'all next time.
See ya.